That's a great start to a podcast.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So we're just chilling here in the studio, drinking drinks.
Discipline drinks.
Discipline Go from
Right.
Jocko Willink. Shameless affiliate link down below. But yeah, for what it's worth, basically healthy drink with stuff in it that's good for your brain. And that's always a win because it's all about building your mind, which is the theme of this podcast. So welcome back to another episode of the Mind Castle. Back in the studio with Austin, my brother, of course. And today we're going to hit a topic that's important, but I'm not really sure. We're going to try to put a frame of reference on it that makes sense. So, Austin, why should we read? And why should we read more? And what are the benefits?
Fantastic question. So, first of all, we need to read because reading is one of the most empowering, I think it's one of the more empowering things that you can do because it's basically, okay, what depends what you read, obviously, but it's one of the best ways to glean information and knowledge from someone. It's like you're sitting down and like learning from that person. You're taking like the best of what they, here we go.
You all right?
Okay. We'll just cut that out.
You just choking.
Yeah, I'm about to die over here. Very emotional about this, right?
This is important.
Yeah. So it's like you get to be tutored by this person. You're taking like the condensed version of something that they have lived and learned and believed and practiced for years. And you can sit down and consume that in a matter of hours. Like that's pretty nuts if you think about it. Not only nuts, but like it's such a incredible gift, really. Cause like, this wasn't always around, you know. Now you have audiobooks. I listen to, tons of books as I drive, and even old stuff too. So that's one of the bigger things for me is like you can take someone's practice that took them 30 years to learn and digest it in like 8 hours. Doesn't mean you learn it perfectly, but you can at least get the information, which is just nuts to me. So I forget the rest of your question, so I'm just gonna stop there.
Why is it important and relatively free too?
Yeah,
like these things that you can learn, you can just absorb for free. You know, if you followed Austin and I at all the last little while, you've probably noticed we do care a lot about using our brains well, learning new things every day, always pushing ourselves to engage with knowledge and ideas. These are important things that I think everybody should do just for basic overall mental fitness. You go online somewhere and just start Googling benefits of reading, and as in like reading a book, not reading, the latest article from your favorite political news, conspiracy, whatever thing on Facebook. I mean like an actual well-written book, what it does just to the pathways of your brain and your imagination and your ability to think of new perspectives that these things don't just happen naturally in your brain. You have to develop them, and reading is actually one of the best ways to do that. Keeps you mentally fit as well. There's a couple of things that keep you mentally fit. Obviously, working out is a big one. Exercise, which I need to work on.
Which we talked about in the last episode.
Yes, we did. Shameless plug again. But reading is another one, and it's relatively low bar of entry. Libraries are everywhere. The internet is there. You can find unlimited books like googlebooks.com or whatever it is. It's really, really simple. So that's one side. The other side is there's actually a significant cost to reading. The cost being it takes a lot of time. And if you buy books, have your own library, like we're seeing right here in my studio, I should count my personal library. It's, for me, fairly large. I don't know, a couple hundred, couple thousand. I don't know, however many volumes I have. It's an investment.
Yeah.
It's not free. It's not free. Audiobooks, they're not free. Good ebooks, they're not free. But is it worth the cost? And that's, I think, one of the things I want to push. And I'm just going to hit a few things from a fellow called Will Durant. If you haven't heard of him, check him out. He's the guy, him and his wife, who wrote the massive set on my bookshelf back in the basement, back where you live, called The Story of Civilization. They're like this thick.
Oh, the big gray ones?
No, they're red.
Red.
Yeah, he wrote them over the entire course of his life. It's the story of the human race.
Whoa.
From antiquity to now. He was a historian or a philosopher. He died, the last one's like 1967 or something, so it brings it up to like the age of Napoleon, and he was going to keep going, but then he died at like 96, so he couldn't finish.
Hold it.
It's incredible. Yeah, and they're so good. They're so well written. Brilliant man. And he wrote a bunch of books and was highly acclaimed, all that stuff. They compiled some of his, I think they were lectures, into a short book here recently. It's called The Greatest Minds and Ideas of All Time, and how that we wouldn't know these ideas or these minds even existed if we couldn't go and find their writings. We would not know Socrates ever existed if Plato hadn't sat down and wrote his stuff that he was saying, because Socrates was just teaching orally, and Plato's back there taking notes, or however it works. Historians debate that, but so he has a couple of things to say about reading that I think just nail this. This is what he calls a library, the mental heritage of our race. Boom, that's so good. And then he said, this one I really like. He said, perhaps you are a college graduate and are ready then to begin your education, which I think is great. Now, he says that a little tongue-in-cheek because he's a highly respected academic. He loves college. He's a professor, right? But he said, you've learned, like, college gives you the framework, but then the books are what's actually going to teach you well. And then he said, but then he goes on to say, college is, quote, treasures offered to them, the students, so lavishly. They're basically just giving you a full buffet of all the ideas. And then after you graduate, you can sit down with guys like Socrates or, Tolstoy and learn from these brilliant minds that have lived. And then he goes on to say that even if you can't do college, because not everybody can, he says, give me 7 hours a week, 1 hour a day, and I will make a scholar and a philosopher out of you. Just because his point being knowledge and these ideas are accessible to anybody who wants them, if they're willing to just take the time and the discipline to sit down and read them, which actually was one of the reasons the Harvard Classics, right here on my shelf, was compiled. It was, I think the president of Harvard back in like 1905 or something said, it was in a lecture. I should look up the lecture again. But he said, if everybody would take just 15 minutes a day, as you're going to bed or something, just sit down and read from a good selection of the classics, you would become an absolute genius about the history of the human race, about the history of the ideas that have shaped our world, about who lived and what they cared about and the things that have got us to where we are today. And it would be huge for your life. And, only 15 minutes. And then someone said, well, yeah, but like, where do I start? Because there's like, a billion books in the world. So no problem. I'm going to compile a, 40 volume or 30 volume set of the greatest pieces. If you're going to start with these. And that's what this set is. So like, just looking here, you got Edward Burke, John Milton, Aesop's Fables, John Bunyan, the Arabian Nights, like some of these really things that have absolutely changed our world.
Right.
Have you read Homer?
I have not.
Dude, you got to read Homer.
There's a lot of people I got to read.
Yeah, well, Homer's a good one. Yeah. What about Socrates?
No.
Oh, you're killing me over here.
Yeah,
you got it, man.
I get on these weird bunny trails of other people, and then, which I'm currently on right now, which is very fun. And I read like everything that they have, and then I'm like done for a little while, and then I'm like, ooh, on to the next person.
Who are you on right now?
Tony Robbins.
You're on Tony Robbins right
Yep.
now. Interesting. I find him intriguing. I've never read a thing by him, actually.
He's only written a few books.
Interesting.
Actually, which is surprising because I think he's the world's most sought after personal life coach in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question.
And it's like he does these 50-hour seminars. He's like over a weekend. I'm like, man, could you just take that and turn it into a book, please?
It'd be so much easier.
Yeah. I mean, you could condense that way down because he's got team activities and all kinds of stuff. And so actually some of his seminars are on Scribed. You can listen to them. And so I'm
like
going
as
through
a podcast?
yeah.
Okay.
They're about 6 hours. They're like in the condensed version.
Sweet.
So I'm listening through that. And then he has 1 or 2 books that I'm going to read.
Wow. That is interesting. Right now I'm on a Tim Ferriss kick, actually.
You can't go wrong with Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, that, and then on the wide other side of the spectrum, I'm also reading Ken Follett. I'm not sure if you ever heard of him. Great. Oh, man, he's a British novelist, writer, and he's so good. Some of his stuff is kind of weird, but like he does historical fiction, and he's really good. Anyway, one of the things also to keep in mind is as the human race goes along, we are, as Sir Isaac Newton says, standing on the shoulders of giants. If you look at Newton, which is also part of the Harvard Classics, got him over here somewhere, If you look at what the guy came up with, the lights, figuring out the light spectrum and all of these things, or, the laws of gravity or the laws of motion, huge. He invented calculus in less than 14 months. The guy was an absolute genius, and he wouldn't take credit for it because he said, no, all I'm doing is just taking the knowledge that was already there and then just pushing it a little bit further forward. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's a great way of saying it is standing on the edge of knowledge and then holding the light a little further ahead. That's what we're all trying to do. The problem is you can't do that if you haven't figured out the other ideas. Newton had to see, okay, here's where the science has gotten to, and it's got up to this point. Now let's just take it one step further.
Right.
But obviously you have to know what the other people taught first.
Like he had to get to that point. He didn't get there just magically on his own. Like he probably, yeah. No, that makes sense.
And it's really interesting. Here's something this is a bunny trail right here. This is free, so you can cut this if you want. But Sir Isaac Newton, the brilliant, scientist, didn't think of himself as a scientist. He thought of himself as a Christian theologian, commentator person, dude, kind of. And he wrote way more about the Bible than he did about science. And nobody really knows. Those works have kind of been lost, or there's a few copies. Nobody really cares. The reason was he was kind of off in his own corner of the world, just kind of coming up with some weird stuff about Christianity that was a little odd, and it never picked up steam because it's not like he did with his science, where he took what had been built and then took it one step further. He was like some of his stuff on Daniel. He wrote prolifically about the book of Daniel. It was just off in left field somewhere.
Kind of blazing his own trail over there.
Yeah, exactly. So it didn't work out. But anyways, I think, a few more things. Books provide a window back in time, which is pretty awesome. They also allow us to be mentored by the greatest minds that have ever lived. Would you like to sit down and have a conversation with Plato? That would be cool. And you can. It's called reading his book, The Republic, and it's great. You can by reading what they wrote. It's like having a conversation with a mentor that died 3,000 years ago. But anyway, do you want to be a better storyteller? Hey, no problem. Immerse yourself in the works of C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia, or, J.R.R. Tolkien, or Dante, or something like that. Do you want to learn a new skill? I promise you there's a book for it somewhere. It has been written.
And it's probably the best way to learn it, too, or one of the best.
Or here's another one. Will Durant got his other book right here. He was a brilliant guy about philosophy and the history of philosophy. That was his field of training. And he took all his knowledge and study of that field, a lifetime, and boiled it down into this little book right here. And if you want a good overview of philosophy, boom, you can just sit down and read this. And you will have such a nice, broad picture of what philosophy is and why it matters to us. Man, I didn't care about philosophy at all until I started reading this. I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of important. I'm really glad that this guy spent 90 years of his life figuring it all out and then condensing it into a 200-page book. Story of Philosophy, by the way. Link in the description below. Affiliate link. Shameless plug. So we can make money and keep doing it. No, I'm just
5 cents at a time.
If you buy this book, 1,000 of you buy this book, we'll have enough money to buy a coffee.
Yay!
Okay, so I have one more thing I want to bounce off of you.
Yes.
So this is a personal rule I have for myself.
Oh boy.
Okay, when it comes to books, here it is. If I'm wanting to buy a book, but I'm not sure if I should spend the money, I literally stop right there and buy it without another thought.
Okay.
Now, let me explain that.
Sure.
Because that's actually usually a reason why people don't buy books. Because it's like, ooh, it's $15 on Amazon. Like, I could buy 3 lattes with that. Or maybe 1 latte, depending on where you live.
What a terrible trade.
Now, here's why I do that. And that's because all I would need to do is extract one key thought from that book. If it's a book worth reading, obviously. I'm not saying buy stupid zombie romance novels or whatever they write these days. That is
Dude, how'd you know I read that?
That is not worth your time, okay? Please don't do that. I'm saying books that are meaningful to your life. Anyways, if I extract one key idea that I can apply to my life and it helps me become a better human or teaches me something I didn't know that is useful later on, that it would be totally worth it. Literally, one idea. For an example, I read the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which is such a scammy title, but it's a great book. I'll Teach You to Be Rich, which is a financial guru up in New York City or something. It cost me like $12 on Amazon or something. But it totally changed some ways how I manage my finance, which will affect me for the rest of my life. Was that $12 worth it? Yes, but I almost didn't buy the book because I'm like, $12, I don't really, And just now, I'll just buy it.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think?
I think that could work. I don't know how that would work for me because So whenever I hesitate on buying a book, unless it's like really expensive, like $30, my thing is I'm usually like not sure if I've done enough research on the book, and I'm not sure that it's going to be worth my time or my money. That's more what would cause me to hesitate. Not so much like,
Oh, yeah,
oh, I
gotcha.
really, really, really want this book. I don't know if I want to spend $8 for it. You know, I'm more concerned about, is this going to be worth my time? But if I get to the point, like you're saying, that you, like, for example, reading Austin Kleon, the one we were talking about earlier, what's it called? Keep it going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Like that, I know for 100,000 million % it's going to be amazing because I've read his other stuff and you've read it. Now that I'm pretty like, I would buy it if I couldn't borrow it from you. So that makes a lot of sense for sure.
Yeah.
Now, what about this? What if we translate that into time? Because we're spending more of our time than our money on a book. So now what if you're like, should I be reading? I don't know if I want to spend 10 minutes reading. Then you just read.
Oh, always. Yeah. No
You
question.
just
Absolutely.
full send?
Yeah, totally. No
Gotcha.
question. Now, it's rare that I have a point in my life where I'm like, I'm not sure what I should do. Should I read for 10 minutes? That never happens.
Yeah.
I'm
Parkinson's law.
way too busy for that. But,
Right.
But that is a beautiful segue into our next episode, which will be which will be how to actually read more. Because that's something when I meet people, it's like, I don't have enough time. That is not true.
Absolutely
you don't have
not.
enough time budgeted for it,
Right.
which is true. So now let's figure out how to budget time properly
Mhm.
and actually make it worthwhile. But that will be the next episode. So if you want to catch that episode, you should hit that beautiful subscribe button. And also, you should find us on the interwebs where we are. Austin is over at austintrock.com. And I am over at reagantrock.com. Very easy to remember.
Never would have thought that would happen.
How about that? We're also on social media.
YouTube.
Under our names.
Yeah.
Austin Truck and Reagan Truck.
So one more thing I want to say, talking about Tony Robbins. So he was talking about how he learned to become the greatest business life coach of all time. Not business coach, more of a life coach. Anyway, he was talking about his mentor and he some of the things that he learned. And one of the things that his mentor said was read 30 minutes every single day.
Ooh,
you must do it. He's like, because if you don't, then basically he was saying that the wisdom that you gain from that, like if you're not learning, then you're not improving your mind. He was talking about like 5 things to make you exceed. And it was like, sharpen your mind or I think it was guard the gate to your mind. Was what he called it, and improve physically or follow someone, like get a role model. So this was one of the things he was saying is like with improving your mind and watching what you intake, he's like, you must find a way to improve your brain every day, and how that would help him. And he was talking about how he would go to these bookstores and read the books there because he couldn't afford to buy them, and he would read. I think he read it was over 100 books a year, I think. And that's what he attributes a lot of his knowledge to. And, but yeah, he was, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting story. He was saying that, let's see, how did he say? His mentor told him a story. He's like, you got a cup of coffee. He's like, now what happens if your worst enemy comes and puts a spoonful of sugar in your coffee? And Tony's like, well, I'd have some sweet coffee. And then he's like, okay, what happens if your best friend accidentally drops poison in there and kills you? And he's like, well, I would die. And he's like, his mentor's like, exactly. Your mind is like coffee. Guard it. You better watch that coffee.
Oh.
And I was like, ooh, that's good. And that segued him into, reading,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I kind of like that story.
Cool. Yeah. Wow. Because that's the thing that when you expose yourself to able to work through different perspectives and ways of seeing things and ideas and things like that can be huge, because then you can build you'll become a mental ninja.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when you run into an idea that's just total hot garbage, like, communism, for example, or Nazism, for example, you'll be like, no, that does not work. And there was a lot of people got deceived by that stuff, for whatever reason. But ideally, if you build your brain to where you can analyze ideas well and be like, that ain't gonna that's not good.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of mission critical for your life. Otherwise, it's very easy to get pulled off and do something kind of stupid.
Yep.
Wow. Hey, I think we should call it. Next episode coming soon to you on how to actually read more. Practically speaking, how do we apply this stuff? Because I think we've made the case that it's worth doing.
Yep.
So you should subscribe.
Yes.
And you should follow us over at Goodreads, where you can track the stuff that we read.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought about that.
Is your profile's public, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, well, people should follow you. And every once in a while, I'll even post the occasional review of the books I read.
Ooh.
Or you can just follow me over on my other podcast called The Books We Read.
The Books We Read.
Which is with my friend Jaron Miller, which we almost never produce episodes. It's kind of bad, but we're working on it. Austin makes all kinds of cool videos on YouTube.
Including one about why you hate reading. So if you hate reading, I go through and like rip apart why it is that like all the small little things that you're doing, which we'll talk a little bit about in the next episode, but small little things that you're doing that make it really hard to read well and read a lot. So you might want to check that out.
And I have a YouTube channel, and I post a video about every 6 months. So you should definitely subscribe to me because, whoa,
never
hot
know when
fire
those things are coming
all the time. Mostly travel videos. The one that may have already dropped by the time we release this is how I flew my drone for the first time in another country and crashed it into a private villa on a lake in Slovenia. It was great. Not really, but it did work out. We got it back. It's quite the story.